the event we never got to a single slide, that's okay with us, right? We'd rather have discussions with our experts and our attendees, so you guys today, than to go through a slideshow. Right, unfortunately, the world we live in is just a couple slides to deliver to make sure that we're getting the right content across, start some dialogue, but also plant some seeds with you guys about what to think about. So in this particular case, obviously we're talking about Brexit, and I'll tell you at the highest level, the answers are not all there. Right, the answers to a lot of the questions that we all have are not all there yet. Obviously, the governments and constituents and the key stakeholders in the matter, they haven't figured everything out yet. So I'll kind of start with that disclaimer. But a couple things, just coming backwards on the housekeeping stuff. We'll leave everybody unmuted just for a second here, just obviously that way we get to meet you guys and say hello and talk. And but then we're going to mute everybody, just in the event you have background noise or things going on. That way we can kind of keep things managed here. But if you have a question, you can obviously raise your hand with one of those buttons. There's a Q&A section at the bottom. You can ask a question, and we'll unmute you right away so you can talk about it and ask questions and get direct feedback. And if you don't want to, talk or interrupt or whatever, again, you're not interrupting. We would rather you jump in. You can always just leave a question, and we can make sure that we get that answered as well. If we're going too fast, too slow, this or that, please just jump in and tell us, how we can, again, make this a great event for you. It will be, of course, recorded. So Maestro Kate, if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy record button, we'll be also able to deliver this on demand. So if you go to our homepage, in a few days to a week, this will be actually posted as well as previous webinars. Of course, as we're just getting started building this, the library will continue to grow over time. And then, of course, we will email you the deck once we're done here. And, of course, welcome any feedback, as, again, for Flash, we are just building this series. So we'd love to hear from you guys. So those are a few things there. I would like to introduce Philip Shadul. He is going to be our lead presenter today. And, again, as I mentioned earlier, quite knowledgeable. And I'll let him introduce himself a little bit, and we'll get moving.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. So yeah, my name is, wow, there's a lot of echo in the background, so muting would be good, I think. My name is Philippe Jadot, as Ryan just mentioned. Nice French name, my native language. That's where the accent comes from. So I'm in charge of global network operations at FlashTube. And as mentioned already, I'm going to speak about Brexit. And Brexit has been in the press frequently. We all heard a bit about the term. But what I'm going to do more specifically, I'm going to address some topics that are very much related to the impact of Brexit to supply chain solutions. But before we start with that, I'll let Ryan just talk to the next two slides here to introduce us a bit in case some of you don't know who we are, what we do.
Right, thank you. So Flash, again, just an overview, and guys, I promise you these are not going to be pitches. I just want you to have context about our lens, how we think, how we kind of approach these things, and even why Brexit is important to us. But ultimately, at our core, as you can see in the middle, it's all about service logistics, right? So for us, we call that the service supply chain. Ultimately, it's anything post-sales that original equipment manufacturers may need from a support perspective and able to in order to deliver excellent customer service to customers around the world, right? So for us, it's about enabling your promise to your customers, which ultimately is to get those replacement parts, spare parts. But as you can see, we've expanded that a little bit, right? So into repair, trade compliance, field services, and product fulfillment. So repair, keeping things in country as long as possible in order to determine, is it no trouble found? Is there an opportunity to keep it there and just do minor repairs? Or if it needs an overhaul, and the great thing there, if it doesn't, we can just put it right back into good stock and we have it ready for deployment. Trade compliance is a tremendous service line for us, helping our customers get things across borders quickly, correctly, avoiding penalties, holdups, and things like that. And that, of course, is where Brexit is definitely sticking its nose in for us to figure some things out. Field services, of course, having an army of techs at various levels, being able to meet a part and your person, your team, to be able to properly install or fix a unit. And then, of course, product fulfillment, configure to order, build to order, making sure that those things are custom. Again, if as much as possible in country, so when you deploy, you're reducing costs. And again, this whole thing is wrapped around visibility, predictability, consistency, and things like that. So that's that one. So the next slide. This is just, in a nutshell, the flow of kind of, how we work, not necessarily always in this order, right? Because everybody's got something a little bit different. But at the very top, you'll see the most important thing, which is your promise. Your promise to somebody who purchased, your device, which is ultimately that it will be fixed according to our SLAs or replaced, and that your brand, the end customer's brand, will always be shining. So, of course, 800 plus service-capable facilities around the world to be able to handle and warehouse and distribute your goods. One of our, biggest things that, of course, that we're proud of, but we see as a demand in the market, is to have a single point of contact, a single contract, right, as opposed to having multiple partners, multiple contracts, even inside with one company. Single system, single point of contact, working towards your solution. So really, in a nutshell, that's who we are. Okay, next slide.
That's it.
Back to you.
You're off. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much. Good. So yeah, back to Brexit. So yeah, as a definition to start with, very easy, right? So the word Brexit is an abbreviation of British exit, referring to the decision made by the UK to leave the European Union. So one could ask, why the hell, right? But some of the reasons is that, many in the United Kingdom Parliament are in disagreement with the EU economics, right? Basically, opponents of the European Union argued that the EU failed to address the economy problems that have been growing over the last 10 years. So a few examples, right? So if you look at unemployment, so 20% unemployment in Southern Europe versus 4.2% in Germany, right? Another example, multiple countries have very, very high debts. They have received billions of financial help, but have made little to no progress. A current example, you may have heard, subventions to Greece are just stopping right now because of that reason. No progress, right? But they still have received already 290 billions that all the members of the EU have come up with, right? Then the UK is also concerned about their sovereignty. So there is a clear mistrust and fear of losing control to organizations like NATO, EU, and others due to their increasing influence. And then also in the press, I guess, immigration crisis in Europe, right? That was also a trigger. Instead of having things dictated by EU directives, the UK government wants to decide on a national level only how to help refugees, as this obviously has a direct impact on the UK citizens. So what's the status? What is happening right now, right? Well, the Brexit new rules that will be effective on December 31st, 2020, will have to wait for 21-month transition period. So why transition? Well, it's just a complicated thing to put in place, and to have everything in place to allow businesses, authorities, and others to prepare for the moment when the post-Brexit rules kick in. Well, that's why the transition is for, right? So far, the free movement of goods and people will continue during the transition period as requested by the EU, and potential changes, which we still don't know which ones, right? Changes to trade regulations, import, export, and others will not be effective until January 2021. So what are they trying to agree to right now, right? Well, they're just right now focusing on what will happen to the Northern Ireland border on the island with Ireland, right? So focusing on UK citizens living in EU countries and EU citizens living and working in the UK. So what's going to happen? Is their status going to change? Need for visa, work permits, all that? We just don't know. And there's still no agreement to these topics right now. So we don't know how fast they're going to agree to whatever they want to agree to, but you know, whether they come to an agreement or not, on October 29th, 2019 at 11 p.m., the UK will leave the European Union. Okay? So how will things work in the long term? Well, you know, as I said, many assumptions and opinions right now, but nobody really knows. Well, the UK and the European Union hope to come to an agreement, as I mentioned earlier, by October 2019, but negotiations, I hope, are just happening as we speak. Okay? So now moving over to supply chain topics, as I mentioned in the beginning, right? So what will be the major impacts of Brexit on supply chain overall? So here's a little overview of the topics impacted by Brexit I will go through, and at the end, a summary, right? So legal, contractual implications, customs handling and tariffs, increased costs, that will be an important one because there will be a big increase in costs. And there is an eye. Who stole my eye here? Brexit impact on supply chain models, and at the end, as I said, the summary. Good. So the legal and the contract. So businesses clearly will have to assess the impact of changing regulations on contracts. Well, what regulations, right? So if a good impact, so now the UK is in the EU, but once they are out of the EU, a good example is the impact of the new EU GDPR regulations. So this is the new regulations that came into effect in May 2018, and is actually covering personal data protection. So the interaction between countries of the EU or interaction with non-EU countries is different. So there will be changes, right? If you look at fiscal changes, so between invoicing, for instance, between EU members is easy. They use an EU VAT ID number, and there is no VAT to be charged, to be paid. It's all going through that number. That will no longer exist for the United Kingdom once they leave the EU, right? So now, talking about contracts with your customers. Well, we need to look into, and you need to look into, is how will they still be viable due to higher supplier costs, maybe importation-related costs, items tax that will turn to be taxable suddenly because they were not in the past. We don't have it. We don't know it, right? Supplier relationships. Look into the relationship with your current service providers in the United Kingdom, right? The present model could have to change, like sending spare parts from the continent to cover next business day SLA will certainly not work any longer because of the import clearance delays, right? So that's not going. Domestic deliveries, instead, will need to take place within the UK to achieve the same SLA you are meeting today, sending from the continent, right? So more inventory may have to be placed in country, right? And with that, the suppliers, your current suppliers' storage space must be scalable, and they must have access to domestic overnight delivery networks. Then customs handling and tariffs. That's well, in my eyes, a pretty interesting one also. So presently, many OEMs replenish their EU location, routing the shipments through the Netherlands, for instance, due to fiscal reasons like the ability to defer import VAT. Well, that would, in future, after UK left the European Union, that would make little sense, right? Because when entering the UK, duties and taxes would be due anyway, and therefore, routing would make sense to change the routing to go directly to the UK versus adding transportation costs going through a EU country. I mentioned taxation earlier. As you know, many computer parts, for instance, are rated zero duties. I don't know, we don't know if that is going to change when importing into UK, right? So certainly, in top of the import VAT that will come to effect, there may be changes in taxation. And will all companies importing in UK be able to absorb the additional costs, or will contracts with the customers or with new customers have to be adjusted? Yeah, think through that, right? So talking about handling, right now there's hundreds of thousands of shipments to UK flying through, going into the UK without any import formalities. Just not needed. It's just the European Union. But we know it can change, right? So in that case, imagine the workforce in customs will have to be adjusted to avoid major delays and bottlenecks to the supply chain overall. Okay? You guys are all very quiet over there. Yeah, extra costs administration, right? So there's plenty of departments that will be impacted. If you look at the accounting departments, for instance, right, they're going to have to handle additional costs, more complex budget, a different cash flow management, right? Your shipping departments will have to handle more paperwork, invoices, commercial invoices, pro forma invoices will have to travel with the shipments for the import clearance. The trade compliance department will have to comply with UK import and export restrictions that are slightly different than the ones in the European Union, right? And talking about trading, new trading relationship between UK and other countries could mean extensive work to reconfigure data in ERP systems and information such as revised routings, sourcing information, bill of material, cost and supplier data, right? Data invoicing, tax reporting, dispatch notes, customs duty, VAT, and many others, right? So that's a major undertaking. So it looks like, based on all that, the Brexit will look like will call for systems to handle more complexity in terms of holding information and potentially frequency of data submission, like customs declaration, right? So it's important to consider how much systems change each of the Brexit scenarios will need. How many scenarios? I don't know, but we need to be flexible. You need to be flexible to include short-term fixes, and that may allow you to move more quickly when the situation becomes clearer, as it is right now. Right. So, beside that, also take in consideration potential impact of currency fluctuations, as we know, like we already have in non-EU countries. Right. So, how does Brexit impact supply chain models, the present ones? So we all know, people that used to work within the European Union or have their supply chains within set up within the EU, that operating in the EU is very, very easy presently. It's just like in one large country, right? You can easily enjoy end-to-end supply chain from manufacturing to recycling, across multiple service providers with multiple service levels without one single import or export clearance delaying your flows. Well, that may change, right? The need for customs procedures will dictate a different behavior, like different stock levels, different suppliers, different service types within the UK and to the UK, right? Just mentioned stock levels. Inventory planning will have to change as higher stocks levels could be needed due to longer transit times to replenish locations in the EU, right? Transit times longer, obviously caused by import clearance. That certainly has an impact on both service and cost, right? So I think it's going to be very, very challenging to service UK customers from a European hub, as many do now, and still meet the SLA. I really don't see that happen, right? Alternative solutions will have to be put in place, like maybe a UK distribution center to service the next business day contracts and replenish the forward stocking locations that are already in place over there, right? So, and if stocks are larger because of the longer lead time to replenish, well, the present location may have to be scalable in terms of additional storage space. And if they're not, well, changes may be required. So, here's a summary basically already there. You know, what is the point? What we need to think about, right? So I mentioned the workforce topic. So clearly increased admin work in accounting, trade compliance, shipping departments, the ERP adjustments, that's a big one. And not to forget workforce adjustments that may be needed in UK customs to handle all these hundreds of thousands of import clearance that will come in addition to what they have right now. Contract with clients, right? Assess your contracts, check if they are still viable, even with the higher costs. You need to address pricing, change regulatory terms, plenty of topics to think about when talking about contracts. Trade compliance, yeah, we mentioned potential higher costs linked to changes in taxation. Not saying it will happen, but it is an option, certainly, right? UK import and export restrictions, in addition to the EU restrictions, will have to be followed. And yeah, the different scenarios, because we don't know what we don't know. I mean, everybody knows the saying, but it's very valid in this case, as nothing has been finalized and agreed to. So I can just say, be open and flexible to various models, right? Very, you know, potential changes, and prepare the systems and flows for changes as they happen. Inventory planning, mentioned that also a few times, right? Longer transit times may dictate higher stock levels. We all know that. Align stock levels to fit your new models as needed, and adjust your service levels and routings, right? So mentioned, may not be able to ship next business day and expect next business day delivery to your customers in UK from the continent. So yeah, to make sure that you match all your service level agreements and maintain client satisfaction, adjust your routings. Or maybe think of a potential DC solution in UK. That may be a solution, right? Suppliers. Think of your suppliers, currents that you have in the UK. Who is handling UK right now for you? Validate that the present service providers will still be the right ones based on the new requirements, with scalable storage space, access to variable service levels, and very important, import and export clearance services, right? Many of you may have already a legal entity in the European Union, or maybe in the Netherlands, right? As you know, it's possible to defer the import VAT there. You may want to find somebody who will help you with setting up a fiscal representation in UK, also to recover import VAT if it cannot be deferred, right? So all important aspects to consider related to setup, costs, flows, supply chain model, and obviously additional costs, right? Well, that's all I have for now, because as Ryan mentioned at the beginning, we don't know more, right? And open for questions if you have any.
Kate's in the process of unmuting. Hopefully you guys, most of you have been unmuted. If not, yell at us somehow, raise a hand. But yeah, okay, looks like everybody's good. So excellent. Thank you, Philip. And yeah, any dialogue, any questions, I think we can dive deeper into.
So yeah, this is Candy. I just wanted to double check that you said that nothing is going to change until December 31st, 2020. So we have time to react.
That is absolutely correct, Candy. So that was one requirement from the European Union countries altogether, to not have a hard change, but allow a transition period to just get ready for the change. And by the way, I mean, it's still a while until October 2019, when they will leave the European Union. But you know, right now it's still a year and a few months to go, but they still have not come to a lot of agreements. So this transition period will be very welcome for many.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
This is Dave. I don't know if it was mentioned. If it was, I missed it. But do we have some expectation as to when we will have more detail, or is that really just as much up in the air as everything else?
So, you know, politicians, right? What can we say now? I mean, as we prepared for this webinar, for this presentation, we've been looking at the news and you know, websites and forums from different parties over the last couple of weeks, but no, there is nothing really that can be confirmed right now.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Well, if there's any others, please bring them on, or if there's any other notes from our team I know is following this stuff closely. And yeah, you know, we are a ways out from this, but there's significant implications for us as an organization. You know, thankfully we have been doing this for a while, and especially Philip, and understanding the nuances, and you know, we're more or less prepared for anybody that needs to, you know, have changes within their supply chain stuff, but we just want to get some dialogue going too about what else is out there. And also I want to say hi to Alka Patel. I see you on there. It's great to see you, and hopefully we run into each other again in the future, but thank you for joining.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, it's good to see your name.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, great, guys. Well, we'll give one more round. Anything else pop up while you're thinking? Any other questions or areas you'd like us to go dig into? Because, of course, we can always return some research to the team here. Anything like that?
Ryan, you said you're going to send out the deck that was presented. Is that correct?
Yes. So you will get an email from us containing the deck, and again, the reporting and all that jazz will be out on our website under the FlashTube section in a week or so.
Great.
Yep. Well, excellent. Well, thank you everybody for joining this morning. And again, we'll be doing these monthly on various topics, so just stay tuned and we'll keep you informed just as we did with this one. And really appreciate you coming, and thank you, Philippe, all the way from Philippe. I used to have worked with a guy in France. He was Philippe, but you're Philip from Germany this morning, this afternoon, and appreciate everybody's time.
No problem. Thank you, Ryan.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Ryan.